Today, we're talking rewrites. What's going on, everybody? So today, we're going to talk about some rewrites. I had a question from one of the viewer people, Fuzz actually, but he's I've been dealing with him for a while. He's a good guy. But he wanted to actually ask me about, my rewriting process. He's apparently coming up on some rewrites himself. Wanted to kind of know how I do things. And honestly, I do them a little different. A lot of you know, I write just off the top of my head. I don't have an outline. So there's a lot of rewriting that's actually involved for me. I usually get the first edition, the first copy. I'm blanking on the actual term. I apologize for that. It's been a long day. But either way, I get the first draft down. There we go. First draft. Got it. I get the first draft down. And then almost immediately, I'll do the first rewrite right after I get done. I'll take just like a day maybe to let it sit, and then I'll just go right into the first rewrite. The reason I do that is actually because I write without a draft, without a outline. Because as I write, obviously there are things that I'll drop, other things I'll pick up, things I'll have to change that are like big, huge plot problems that if I don't get fixed up, they're going to be issues. And so I get those fixed almost immediately. I just, right off the bat, I'll get done writing, and I'll go right into the new draft. And I'll just start writing away on the new one, fixing all the huge plot holes that I changed as I wrote. And, that's just my initial rewrite. It's nothing nitty-gritty, nothing little, just the big plots, run through it, and then boom. After that, I let it sit for about a month before I even look at it again. Then when I finally do look at it, I just read it through once, real speedy-like, kind of get an idea of what needs attention, what needs work, and then I'll start my rewriting process. And this comes in many stages. There's no just one and I'm done. I start, obviously, I'll go through and I'll write the big, huge, gaping problems that are smacking me in the face after sitting for so long that I might have missed before. And I'll fix all these giant plot holes that have to be addressed, or else there'll be issues with the story. And then from there, as I do that, I get grammar. I do grammar as well, just because that's how I naturally do it. I do the little grammar tags, but I'm not as focused because a lot of times I'll end up wiping out whole, chapters and rewriting them from scratch and all this other stuff. So I don't get too focused on grammar, but I do it a little bit. I got a cat down here playing with a piece of string, but I do some, I do a little bit of grammar tweaking and stuff where I think it's important. And then from there, I just, I do several more rewrites. I usually do, I think I'm averaging around 8 to 10 rewrites on these. But I mean, they range in size for me. I do like the first 3 solely just on the computer. And then from there I print it out and I'll go through with pen and ink and I'll mark up a whole bunch of stuff to help me kind of get an idea of where it's at. And then I'll do a couple more on paper and then I'll do a final one on pen and ink. Just kind of finalize as best I can. And as I say with everything, it's a process. You got to figure out what process works best for you. What works best for me is the fact that I rewrite a lot. Because I write just off the top of my head, I got a lot of issues. I'm not the best at grammar on the first run, so I got a lot of that I got to do. But the big advice I give is start big. Start with the plot holes. Make sure the story itself is smooth. From there, move, get slightly smaller. Start with the plot, then maybe go a whole round where you're looking at just the characters. Make sure the characters are fleshed out and complete, and there's a nice story arc to them, and a nice character arc, and everything's good there. And then look at the world itself after that. Make sure you've actually, especially if you're writing fantasy, this is very important. Make sure you have fleshed out your world. Because, you always hear about fleshing out the characters, you don't hear about fleshing out your world very well. And I understand this is especially difficult because it's hard to build a world. It really is. I'll probably do a video next time on maybe some world building and give some examples of what I think is some really good world building in books that I've read. But either way, I'll do the plot, Then I'll do one that solely focuses on the characters. Then I'll do one that solely focuses on the world building. And then I'll do a couple more that just, scanning it real well, making sure everything's good and, really set in stone. And then I'll start in on the grammar and all that other stuff. But the grammar is always last. Always save the grammar for last, because you never know when you're going to change big expanses of it. There'll be lots of changing, lots of all kinds of stuff that you end up swapping around, moving chapters, eliminating characters. I've done that before, where I cut out entire characters, adding plot points, adding subplots, there's so much stuff that you can do. And if you focus on the grammar like a lot of people like to do, you're going to waste a lot of time, because then you're going to have to go back and rework all that grammar again, because you changed chapters upon chapters upon chapters. So I recommend pretty typical, pretty easy type. Start big, work through focusing just on plot, focus on plot, then do a character run, then do a world run, and then do a cleanup run. So at least 4 of them is what I would recommend myself. Do 4 of them, and you might have to do multiple for each of those. You might have to do multiple big runs, multiple character runs. See, like with me, I usually only do about 1 character. I'm really good with characters. World building, not so much. I really got to work on my, fleshing out the world. I'm decent at world building, but not fleshing it out. It's like in my mind, it's really good. On paper, not so much. So it's kind of where I could use a little work. So I'm working on that myself. I do a lot. I usually end up doing about 3 on the world alone, making sure I get some history, some background, making sure the cultures line up and people are just the way they should be. But I think I've rambled on long enough, so as I said, I'd start with the big plot holes, characters, world, and then general. That's all I got. If you got any questions, just hit the comments below and I'll answer them as best I can, and I will see you all next time. Later.